Da 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 da. What's my good chair? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know that I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I would have to say, today was a big day for lessons. Well, almost every day is a big day for lessons, but those lessons that really hit home, that actually stir me up, that impact me in a way that make me reflect on it for a while, contemplate as I'm washing dishes. Sometimes I'm talking, I'm disagreeing, I'm having my own thoughts on the subject, and that's okay. Different perspectives are needed in this world that we live in. If we didn't have different perspectives, we probably would be following people, right, that are imprinting us in a way to maneuver us in the direction that they want to go rather than being our own person, right? Having our own thoughts, right? Living our own lives, having our own perspectives. And it actually, maybe I can find it here. I might have the windows. No. Um, I watched a video this afternoon, and it's one of my favorite. He's definitely a thought leader, and he's definitely his own person in his not just his own perspectives, because he takes on the perspectives of others and he feels them out to see if they're truths for himself. And then he offers it up there. And whether or not we choose to sit in on a conversation and learn something, to each one of us, it's truly our own choice. And actually, that person was Sam Vatkin, and he is a professor of psychology. He's not a psychologist himself, he actually teaches the psychologist. And he is an expert in narcissism, but he covers a lot of topics when it comes to understanding the mentality of man, for sure. And in his own perspectives, he puts it out there so that we can have a clear picture of things that might possibly be tripping us up in life. I was introduced to his content, oh, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Uh, and I really, well, I enjoy the topics that he brings up because it brings resolve to my soul. It brings truths to the surface that I've never considered. And remember what I said, that sometimes we get hit hard by an insight. Those insights that are actually revelations. Those, oh my goodness, right? Right? And he does that for me all the time. And it does make me reflect on, right, those experiences that we all have, but we don't always understand. And sometimes we come out of those experiences bitter, right? Sometimes we come out of those experiences truly messed up, right? Not being able to hold our own perspectives, our own thoughts, our own truths. And we look to others, right? In those ideas of, let me tell you what the truth is, right? And he uses lots of big words. You would expect that he does, being a professor of psychology, right? But one of these words, and you might go, silly, that's right? I knew that what that word was when I was like 5 years old. I didn't know what it was. I actually had to Google the word. And the word was, I wrote it down here. I'll better pronounce it if I read it. Existentialism, an existentialist. And I said, what is that? Right? I may have heard the term over the course of the words, but because I didn't understand the word, right, I didn't put any meaning to it at all. Kind of when I looked at that, I kind of thought realist. That was the first thing that came to my mind. But, for my own understandings, I don't want to put words in somebody else's mouth. I want to know what it means. So I Googled it, right? And this is what it said about an, an existentialist is someone who follows a 20th century philosophical and cultural tradition centered on individual freedom, personal responsibility, and the search for meaning in an indifferent and absurd universe. I went, oh my goodness, that's pretty deep, right? And then, so the core beliefs of this idea, the hallmark of an existentialist, and I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, it's a hard word to pronounce, thought is summarized by John Paul Sartre's phrase, existence precedes essence. Life is what happens to you while you're making other plans. I went, oh my goodness. I am an existentialist. This is the person that I am, right? That not having that direct purpose, but always looking out for where I can contribute, where my knowledge and experience could be of help. And also, right, being fat kid, being that mirror to myself, right, to actually poke at those soft spots in me, right, those triggers that bring about realization, that bring about an understanding for myself, not necessarily for anybody else, because not everybody is an existentialist. I'm pronouncing it wrong, right? But he gave some examples, right? And one of those examples is somebody that I resonate very much with. A lot of his ideas because he is rough around the edges and not like mean or anything, but the impact, like how it hits you, how the truth hits you that way. And that person was Jordan Peterson. And I went, oh my goodness, right? His insights, I really do connect with him because he's hitting with the truth, but sometimes the truth doesn't sit well. It doesn't feel good. So of course, delving into the topic of this and it hits, it's non-denominational, right? It doesn't care about your religion and in fact, right, I believe that religions and spiritual ideas actually trip us up. They kind of trap us. Lots of times we wake up to some of these ideas, but because they're so scary, because we don't understand them, because they're so deep, because we don't know what's happening to us, because it's crazy town, we want to fit in. We want to normalize that, right? And sometimes we find that we give those understandings because they're not the norm, because people might look at us funny, right? Think that we're strange, and they give it to an established system and they become part of a group that way. They, right? Christianity. You have your own experience in that, but then you give that experience to the church, right? And you, when you do that, you're taking on other people's beliefs, right? Other people's truths. And I find it very curious. I've always felt it very curious that I have never been religious, right? I've gone to church. My mother loved Jesus. And and I've cried out to God. I have prayed to God. But for myself, the be all to end all, the whatever, the whoever, right? That holiest of holy. And I'm not necessarily certain that it's a holy, right? For me, I'm more run on the lines that it's something in the future, right? That has um, resurrecting somewheres where we went wrong, right? It's like giving us another chance. It's like, resurrecting the Thylacine, right? Or the dodo bird, like going back to give something that was extinct, that was nil, that had failed in its evolution, another shot, another try. And I believe, possibly, right, there could be 20 different petri dishes with different versions of this world, each one given a shot to do a better job next time, right? That somewheres that we are being directed to course correct and maybe give ourselves as a human race another shot, another chance. I'm a true believer that the humans are the main ingredient in what's moving forward, right? That whether it's religion or spirituality or in realism or in our own ideas, that those are the obstacles, right? That's been what's been tripping us up all along. But that's my perspective. That's my truth. And I don't expect anybody to follow suit in those ideas because everybody is so drawn to what they're drawn to. You know, epigenetically in my family, hello, Eugene. Epigenetically in my family, Protestants and Christians and Judaism is huge, right? And in my family, like we have bishops and archbishops and nuns, and it's just been part of my bloodlines movement. And maybe that tripped us up, maybe it didn't, maybe that is truly that form that I'm supposed to be moving with. But because I don't feel that way, and because I don't feel that block, because I don't feel that no, you can't leave the church, right? What you're doing is blasphemy. I don't feel any of that. And I don't think since the beginning of waking up to any of these ideas that it has ever tripped me up in a way to steer me in that direction, right? That being a, I'll read it from here, existentialist, which I feel I most definitely am. And today was the first day that I actually had a label that I could apply myself to. And also, what it was saying here, that, uh, well, I've lost it, but I might be able to think of it as we carry on in the conversation, is the idea that we don't have a set goal, that we're supposed to be just open to these ideas and to be willing to be called in the direction where we feel called to be in. I feel to be exactly where I am. And, lots of times I beat myself up because I don't have a clear directive in that. Like right? I have dreams and goals, and I have feelings towards where I feel like I would like to go in, where my beliefs actually lay. But because I'm so willing, and because I come across ideas and perspectives, even to this moment, that just make me go like this, that I understand that I am not even close. Oh, I remember now, those individualisms, right? I am very singular, I believe, in a lot of my beliefs, a lot of my ideas, being my own person. And they do call it individualism. And I resonate with that wholly, because I do have connections and relationships with those other parts of me. It's not just Cindy anymore. And I felt that way for over 50 years. And that's the honest truth. I'm 64 now. So I've been on it for a while. And I've been on it hard. And, I'm able to go hard because I don't have those distractions in my life. I don't have children. I don't have a husband that needs to be cared for, dinner on the table at 5, and laundry and cleaning the house and cleaning up affairs and being a good partner, right? So I don't have those distractions. So I am able to apply myself in what I do. And because I'm not an extension of anybody else, right? To my knowledge. We are all drawn and pulled to others, and that's the truth. But that's because we have been traveling, right? If you believe in any way, like I do, like I believe that we have been, parts of us, Cindy's never coming back, but parts of us are coming back in that opportunity to course correct, to live in the shoes and have the experience of possibly a different culture, right? A different country, a different way of being, because each one of us in our lives are brought up in different mannerisms, right? My father was a spiritual person. My mother was, well, she loved Jesus, right? She wasn't quite sure of her religions. We tapped into quite a few growing up, but that was her own search, right, for the truth. And in that small idea, she was, well, I'm not sure if she was her own person there. I believe that she was probably very codependent with my father, and she just put her faith into an established faith. I'm kind of a mishmash of lots of perspectives, lots of ideas. I delve a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, enough to get myself into a conversation, right? But I touch base on a lot of different religious and spiritual ideas. And I believe whoever, whatever, right, has gifted each one of these networks, organizations, faiths with gifts, with true parts of what's true in the willingness that we need and understand that we should be moving in, like the Ten Commandments. Okay, so we'll at that, right? For me, like Ten Commandments, for me, that's like base values. And it's something I believe this world needs so badly. It's why I love law of attraction. It's why I love mindset because it fits so well. And because mindset isn't a religion, it isn't, right, full of political ideas and dictating in where each one of us should be in life, that because we get to have those own choices, we get to make those own choices for ourselves, that we're able to use baseline values, which mindset is amazing at, right, it makes it so that it doesn't matter what religion you are, right, what political ideas you have, what spiritual aspects you have of yourself. If we all moved with mindset, which kind of in the way is like 10 commandments, right, they're just thou shalt not lie. How, well, it's not, it's easier said than done, isn't it? But isn't it something that's worth moving towards, especially in this world, this day and age, that this phony baloney is absolutely everywhere? Like everything is a fish hook in a pool or a pond, a fish looking to hook each one of us, right? It's like everybody is looking for our attention, and to be able to take in content like I do, I have to be grounded in those values that I hold dear, right? And you guys know that kind of move with kindness. I move with consideration. I move with those those quotes that my dad brought us kids up with. That those are mindset, right? Those quotes. They were just meant to give us that steer of how we can interact with people who are different from us, people who might not understand us, understand what we're talking about, right? But you understand kindness, right? If kindness was one of those base values, right? And just make that so the whole world just, right, recognizes that kindness is important, right? Even thou shall not lie. Well, it's hard, right? We are all a work in progress. We probably all lie numerous times a day. And it's funny because I was talking to my sister this week and she says, "Oh, Cindy, I I know you'll probably lie to me, but I just want to check out to see what your financial situation is, if you're doing okay and stuff." And I said, "Tracy, I don't lie, right? I just can't do it. I'm practicing mindset." And then I go off to buy groceries and I'm bumping into people and I'm stretching the truth. And because I had just said that to my sister, I took note of it and went, "Oh, Cindy, right, that was a little white lie. Cindy, that's not exactly the truth, is it?" Right? So it's always something to work towards, right? In working with values, and whoever, whatever, understands that it is. I'm going to show you this. Before I came live, I play with crystals all the time. I it's important for me to handle them, right? These are the most ancient things in the whole world, and they're millions of years old. But I want to show you, right? I guess if we're going to talk about evolution, right? Look at, I'm going to shine a light on it. This is one of my favorite ones. I keep it on my fireplace mantle, and I'm just going to, and I just play with them and I look at all the shiny. Let's see if I can get it in there so you guys can see how beautiful it actually. Oh, Cindy. Oh, I'm not doing a very good job, am I? I think it's worse than it. But this is a big chunk of amethyst that I have here. And all these little pockets are just full of crystals. That might not be a good example, but this is one of my favorites. I love putting it on my desk and holding it and looking at all the crystals in it and all these little crevices and holes and stuff. This is a piece of Thunder Bay amethyst here. And this is my monkey because it's evolution, right? We all start somewheres, don't we? Okay, I'm just gonna put that here. I'll put it back on my mantle in a minute. And then I have my smoky quartz, right? And these are all crystals. They're millions of years old, you guys, right? And I just hold on to them and I feel them and I look at them and I look for the little feathers in the crystals. And, one day I'll actually find a crystal with a bug in it. Oh, and then of course you guys have seen my favorite. This is also a big honking piece of amethyst. This is my favorite though. This will be not buried with me, but this will be passed on, and I'm sure it will be here till the end of time, right? Somebody will care for it. But this is my dragon stone. You can see it's got a dragon on the front of it, and also the tail extends into the back here. Okay, so let's get back into the conversation. So there was another gentleman. I listened to his content um because he has good questions. He passes the lessons on, not by facts, giving out the facts, this is how it is. A lot different than Sam Batkin, but Sam Batkin is telling facts. He's giving stories. He's showing the evidence. This gentleman, Gooby and Dooby, he was a neurosurgeon and he retired. He's a very young man. He right. It went against his values and his own values, and he was out today, and he was talking about uh this idea of diversity in the world. And he says, diversity is a good thing. Well, of course, diversity is a good thing. That's how we got here, right? We are a mishmash of different human species over the course of millions of years, right? And we have very minute of some of those really archaic human beings, but the way we are now is a transition. It is an evolution, right? And he was saying, diversity is amazing. And, but, if you treat people the same, you're going to get bit, you're going to get hurt because not everybody has the same values, right? And I went, oh my goodness, this is a topic just for me because values makes it common values makes it so that we can get along with everybody, right? And you if we could have an organization like all the countries get together, okay, these are the base values, and come up with 10 or 20 of them, right? To conversation of Doobie and Gooby, which is one of Doobie is him and Gooby is his pet dog, right? In his idea of how can we get along with these murderers and rapers and and thieves and outright liars and manipulation. How can we get along with people like this? Well, it's through base values because you set the base values up kind of like law, right? Just like when you're going to court and stuff, you get a ticket as you're driving down the road. Well, because if you're speeding, you have that possibility of hitting somebody or right that it kind of fixates on the that wasn't fixate. It's not fixate, but it's actually having a set of values that just everybody knows, right? You can't speed. You can't speed or you're going to get a ticket. You can't lie or it's going to be brought to your attention and maybe the attention of everybody around you, right? Like a lot of just even in the Ten Commandments, if you think about it, I think that was absolutely amazing that they could put those Ten Commandments out there and it kind of are the rules for that for Christians, okay? Because we're using that example, the Ten Commandments. But does everybody follow that? Right? Thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not cheat on your wife. That's one of the rules, not exactly pronounced that way. I'm never going to express myself as being an expert in the Bible, right? I haven't delved into a Bible in probably 60 50 years. We'll say 50 years. I have not been into the Bible, right? When I've had my own experiences, and that probably have impacted in the establishments and where I settle into. But I don't hold any ill will, right? But if that Christian is out cheating on all their wives, right? That is breaking of their own values. And then that's when you pull yourself away from, right? You don't associate because they're not following the path. They're not following the commandments. They're not following values. We live so close to each other in this world now, you guys, right? We're so close to each other that we are going to have a set of rules, right? And I would much rather, right, follow and be taught from one lifetime to a next, not be impacted and influenced by right my mother's religion of Christianity and then right my dad never really talked about his beliefs, but when I woke up to my ideas and was able to put myself back in those shoes as the child and teenager that I was, right? And take a look at my dad's bookcase and, right, his personality, our conversations, the way he lived, the way he brought his kids up, the way he loved those quotes. There was no argument in that. And because I am my father's daughter, right? I 100% my father's daughter that, I do feel that draw to, right? That mindset does feel true for me. And in feeling true for me, I delve into it. How can, right? Because It's my perspective. They're my truths. They're my beliefs. But I sure would love to meet up with people who feel the same way, that believe the same way. And, those crews, sometimes we don't rub each other well. Sometimes we rub each other with sandpaper, even though we see them, right, as the same. They don't see us the same. They don't feel us the same. And that's because we've handed our experiences and our beliefs and handed it over and become a follower of another religious or spiritual or political or communical or cultural idea, right? And we get trapped in that, and sometimes we get trapped for generations and generations, maybe thousands of years, in what's being passed down from one generation to another, and never have that opportunity to think for ourselves, to believe for ourselves, to trust that we can have our own perspectives and not look kooky, right? To not be disrespected in a manner, or be able to move with people from different cultures, different religious ideas, different spiritual ideas. And so I am a big advocate for mindset, because mindset is not stuck in those political ideas, in those religious ideas. It's for everybody and anybody, and that's what I appreciate so much for, because when you don't have that directive, when you don't have, this is the plan, right? That this is right. I get that idea of this is what's next, and I move to what's next. But what's next doesn't usually point at the direction, at the destination. It's usually only the prerequisite for the next experience, the next lesson. And I believe, it's why I chose to take on mindset, because I believe that I need to be somewheres. I need to be grounded in beliefs, right? Just like, somebody can believe in Jesus, right? And not be persecuted for that. To be able, but the idea is to have those same values, the baseline values, like the 10 Commandments. And I'm not saying the 10 Commandments, because you can't, right? You can't dictate from one religion to another, because then that just becomes a faith war, right? That only becomes agitation to someone who doesn't believe in that faith, that understanding. But if you could get all the countries to sit around the table and, like the Constitution, right? But again, right, you don't want to have a constitution that's outdated, right? In a way, because in the moment it works, and not to criticize, but in my own mind, because I have different perspectives about firearms, right? I don't see guns, right? Even when I see police, they're in the pouches and they got snaps on it and stuff. The only time I ever see a gun is on TV. Well, I don't watch TV, but right, in on YouTube or on the news, or when my dad would go hunting, right? And I would see his rifle. Oh, and then my husband too, because my husband was in the military, but I never saw his guns. A friend gave him a gun one time, and it was under our bed for years and years and years. It was just under the bed. It was a great big sniper rifle or something a friend gave to him. I didn't like it under there, and he did have it all locked up. But I don't believe in that possession of arms where it could be available to a kid who wants to play cowboys and Indians, or for the kids to feel that it's okay to walk around in public with a gun. And right in the States, we understand you're licensed properly, you can carry a firearm, you have the right to protect yourself. But in a moment of frustration, in anger, in a misunderstanding, in a fury, that we do stupid things in an instant that we regret in the next instant. And that destroys lives, right? So, my idea is those common values. And it's great that Gooby was bringing up Doobie was bringing up these questions. This is the way, right? He has a talk, and he's inquiring and loudly, and he's asking questions, and he's looking for those answers, and having a platform he does. I think he has 500 or 600,000 subscribers. That his audience is giving perspectives, and in those perspectives, sometimes we catch a truth, right? Sometimes that truth is just for us, but sometimes that truth is something that's probably worthy of being a truth for everybody. But because we're not on the same page, Doobie is correct. How do we connect with people who are dynamic? How do we connect with people who we might not consider to be good people, right? The murderers and the rapers and the robbers and the thieves and the people that we know are right, not people that we would directly want to be hanging out with or taking advice from. But because they have that power, sometimes we don't have a choice, because they're the leader, because people are handing over what they've woken up to, because they feel off, they feel strange, they feel outcast, and they want to belong to something, right? That they handed off to these leaders who have their own directives, right? Right? We all have directives that we wake up to in life. I believe that, but sometimes we're not listening, and sometimes we find ourselves in the wrong place in the moment. And that's why it's important in this lifetime, right? Maybe for lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes, you have been a Buddhist, right? That I'm just using that as an example. And then your other parts, your souls, right? In those epigenetics, they wake up in the next lifetime, and you're in a group of people run by a man called Helter Skelter, right? I don't know if that was his name, but that was the name of the movie, right? And that doesn't rub you well, but because your parents belong to the group, and this is the leader dictating the lessons and stuff, that we are absorbing that, and it becomes a truth for us, right? Unless you have that hindsight to be your own person, to search out the answers for yourself, to individuate, right? It's important to have these kinds of discussions. I think this moment in time was specifically created, right? We didn't know it was coming 25 years ago. None of us had the clue that this would be going on, right? And in lots of these groups, networks, religious ideas, spiritual ideas, they have compounded into their following, into their families, into their their groups, that this is the be all to end all. This is the truth, right? And then to just happen on to a conversation with somebody that you might not have ever, right, rubbed shoulders with, and go, oh my goodness, that feels so good. That feels like a truth for me, right? And then, but it's not a truth, right? You took that home and said that as a truth to your family, you would be, right? You would be cast out, right? Exercised, labeled mentally unstable, right? As a problem. And it could, well, it does cause problems, doesn't it? It does cause problems. We are more open, right? And it is important, right? Just like uh, Gooby was saying, about diversity. And it's something I talk about all the time, because it's important that we move forward. But because we are Homo sapiens now, right? There are no more other species of human beings on this planet. It's Homo sapiens, right? If we ever happened onto Sasquatch, maybe got a DNA test, it turns out that they're, right, Homo erectus, or they're Homo naledi or Neanderthal, right? When that truth faces us in that moment, well, that's the evidence, right? And you can't go against the evidence. And a lot of the evidence coming forward now is going to open up our eyes to real truths. And it's going to tear us away from one of these states of beliefs that we are in, because it won't connect anymore, right? And we don't want a world of disillusionment. But if we, at that point, can individuate, right? Another hard word for me, to be able to have our own thoughts and our own beliefs in that, and maybe take a bit of this from Christianity, and take a little bit of this of Muslims, and a little bit of this from the Buddhists, and these are just few religions and spiritual ideas that come, but those base values, so important, right? We'll recognize in the future generations, I'm sure, right, that there'll come a time where it will be needed. But I'm going to start now. And the idea is, yes, there are murderers and rapers and bad people out there, right? They just have not evolved to that state of understanding, that state of evolution, right? That it's going to take some time. It might take a lot of time, right? And we're so segregated and separated from each other right now that we are still butting heads and warring with each other and making everybody out to be the bad guy. But what if that bad guy who is mixing, right? Who's mixing things up is only looking for diversity, that they are the catalyst for what's next in those opportunities to get things right where we went wrong. And maybe, right, that we might look different, feel different, express different, but we'll still be here. And possibly not just still be here, but be in a better place where there aren't murderers and rapers and robbers galore. Okay, you guys. That's what I've got for you. I've got for you tonight. You guys can see, I've been in it a little bit, but it's only in that recognition of my own beliefs and those perspectives of mine, and to be able to see somebody else have a little tidbit of the same perspective or those same questions that I had in my life, and then just say, oh my goodness, people are starting to think about these things now. How amazing is that, right? We didn't know that this was coming 20, 25 years from now. What's the next 20 or 25 years going to look like? What's the next 20 or 25,000 years going to look like? Cindy's not going to be here. Those other parts of me are. I believe that for myself. And so, whatever little extra that I can accommodate, that those trip ups, those self doubts, those insecurities, and are irrelevant because we have base values now, that possibly that we could just move at a faster pace, a more comfortable pace, safer place, right? It's coming, you guys. I believe that it is. We're just not all there, like I said. It's evolution. This is the way I believe, right? Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer. Thank you. Thank you, Eugene, for coming in tonight. Thank you all. For those of you who pop up your feet when you get home from work. I hope you find me to be entertaining. That was actually something also I was contemplating in today, is in that amazement that I can go into some of these really, really heavy topics, sometimes painful topics, but come out feeling better, come out of it feeling more optimistic, right? Come out of it kind of joyous and excited about what the future has in store for us. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.